And so that is, in essence, the difference between spirituality versus mysticism. Mysticism is the deep understanding of how everything works at the most base level of the universe. And spirituality are the practices that make use of that awareness. Religion comes in when you set dogma, when you set rigid constructs of what is supposed to be, how it's supposed to be, where you start telling people that this is how the world works, this is what has to happen, and these are the things that you have to do. That becomes religious practice. And sure, there's spirituality to it because it stems from mysticism. But that is basically kind of the difference between spirituality and religion. Religion is like boxed in. Here's the practices we're doing. Here's how we're going to do it, how you're going to do it, and what you need to believe if you're going to be part of this. Spirituality can be open, exploring, trying to understand. But underneath all of that is the mysticism, which has that true basic understanding of the interconnectedness of all things and how we can best make use of that interconnectedness. Try to remember that feeling that you had in that time when you were in the presence of being with something sacred. And notice in your body where you're feeling that sacred feeling, and just breathe into it. Breathe into it, expand it, make it stronger, make it bigger. Let it fill the space around you, filling your body, your being in the time and space of here and now. Just let yourself be surrounded by this sacred energy and tune your mind into that sacred awareness. That will put you into sacred space internally, externally.
Hey, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to my listeners all around the world. Here's Oliver from the Oliver Schirach Show, and this is another episode which has been recorded about 3 years ago. So my beard has been growing since. Fitting to this episode with Kaedrich Olsen. Kaedrich Olsen is a paranormal expert with about 30 years of experience. He is a shadow worker, a spiritual guide, a trainer, and a really cool guy to talk to. And put a lot of part and a lot of fun. In this episode, we are going into the definitions of spirituality, religion, and mysticism, and how are they connected, how to distinguish them. We also look at the black mirror. How does a black mirror works? What should you be careful with? We also look at general shadow work and Kaedrich's own definition of how to work with it and safety. The dark night of the soul, what it is and how we can come out of it. The importance to stay in high vibration, and we will talk about what high vibration is as well. And of course, some memorable stories with the supernatural and much, much more. I hope you enjoyed this talk as much as I did when I made it. And yeah, it's about 3 years ago, so I look a bit different. But as with many of my interviews, it doesn't matter when they have been taken. The content is really great and will also help today. Welcome. Here's Oliver from the Oliver Schirach Show. And for a second time, I have Kaedrich Olsen in his dark cave. Today, for the ones which have the video, both have a cape or whatever you call it, like the hoodie. My beard is not as long and luxurious as Kaedrich's. And I have extra mood light here underneath me. So welcome, Kaedrich, for a second episode, second interview.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be back, man. This is going to be great.
Yes. We had already some technical issues as last time again. So we are crossing the finger that this time we're just going through until the end. I have a lot of questions because we know the ones who listened to the first interview, Kaedrich describes himself as complicated. And complicated because he's interested in many things and has experienced a lot. So today we start with mysticism and spirituality. And we'll take it where it takes us, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I've realized the last week since we had the interview that I make a lot of times the mistake between mysticism and spirituality. So how would you describe those two terms and what is the difference?
Well, let me tell a story that maybe to help better illustrate how this works. Let's imagine in a garden, with some spiritual statues in there. There's a bench, and sitting on the bench is a little old lady, and she's got a prayer wheel, or maybe she's even got a prayer book, anything. But let's imagine she's sitting there on the bench, spinning the prayer wheel in silent contemplation of the prayer wheel. That is definitely a spiritual practice. She doesn't necessarily know, she might know the prayer, but she doesn't necessarily know the deeper meanings beyond the prayer, the origin of it, what it's all about. But spinning that prayer wheel in silent contemplation brings her the peace, the sense of spiritual connection that she needs, brings her a bit of that quality of life that she's looking for. She's happy with that. And so that is a level of spirituality, not even quite religious dogma, but just maybe spirituality to help get her some peacefulness, some sense of connectedness to something greater, help to bring some meaning and purpose to her life. Next to the garden is a temple. Inside the temple are monks who pray regularly. They know the meanings of the prayers. They have a deeper understanding of what those prayers are all about. And with their hearts and their minds, as they go into a deeper meditation, they are able to imbue those prayers with the energy, with the essence of their being, so that those prayers have an effect on the collective unconscious through their actions of reciting the prayers, by doing their heart and mind in tune with it, so that the lady who is in the garden spinning the wheel doesn't have to worry about it. As she's spinning the wheel, the prayers through the hearts and minds of all of those monks inside are becoming actualized in her life. And so that is an example of, let's say, exoteric and regular practice. Regular practice is outside of the world. The exoteric, the outside view of the mysticism, the spiritual practice, is what the monks are doing inside the temple. But deeper into the temple, there's a chamber where the oldest of the monks live. They've been around, they've read all the texts, they've done their prayers. They have a deeper understanding of how human consciousness connects with the universe, connects with reality, how human consciousness connects with each other. And inside this inner chamber, they're able to construct new prayers. They're able to put together symbols with deeper meanings and deeper purposes to it. And then this is the esoteric part of it. This is the mysticism. This is the underlying current where they have this deep understanding of human potential, of human consciousness, the nature of reality, and how everything and everyone is interconnected. And because they have that deeper understanding, they're able to construct spiritual practices that make best use of that mystical awareness. So those people in the deeper chamber will create, they will have the, let me try it this way. Those people in the deeper chamber use their understanding of mysticism, which is that interconnectedness of all things, to create a spiritual practice for the monks that are at the exoteric part of the work, the spiritual part of the work. They do their practices. And then, as part of their spiritual practice, those monks will create other practices for the people on the outside of the world so that they have that level of spirituality. So they have that spiritual interaction, that spiritual connectedness too. And so that is, in essence, the difference between spirituality versus mysticism. Mysticism is the deep understanding of how everything works at the most base level of the universe. And spirituality are the practices that make use of that awareness. Religion comes in when you set dogma, when you set rigid constructs of what is supposed to be, how it's supposed to be, where you start telling people that this is how the world works, this is what has to happen, and these are the things that you have to do. That becomes religious practice. And sure, there's spirituality to it because it stems from mysticism. But that is basically kind of the difference between spirituality and religion. Religion is like boxed in. Here's the practices we're doing. Here's how we're going to do it, how you're going to do it, and what you need to believe if you're going to be part of this. Spirituality can be open, exploring, trying to understand. But underneath all of that is the mysticism, which has that true basic understanding of the interconnectedness of all things and how we can best make use of that interconnectedness.
Okay. Now let's see. Uh, oh, sorry. I'm loud. I've heard lately someone talking about, the different religion, the different beliefs, they have all different levels of growing up, like we as humans, right? When you're 1, 2, 3 years old, you have like mine, and then you get older, then you start sharing, and then like there's nothing mine, everything is ours kind of mentality. When you look at the different religion, let's say we have like Buddhism, Catholic, Orthodox, Muslim, and so on and so forth. And there's like these fights in between sometimes. But on the other hand, I'm when I talk to some people of the different religion, depending where they are, they see everything as one. And other times you see all these people which are fighting against, oh, you're not one of our religion. So what do you think? How is that to be defined, or where is that to be placed?
I think that really comes down to individual and social insecurities, where if you are secure in your spiritual understanding and your spiritual growth, you don't really care what other people are doing. In fact, maybe you applaud them for following a different pathway. But if you are insecure about it, that if you think that you need to have everybody around you agreeing with your same beliefs, and that your social identity is based upon your religious understanding, you're going to insist that everybody around you agrees with you because it makes you feel comfortable. It's like, well, of course I'm right. Look at how many people believe this way. And oh, those people are wrong there, but we need to get them to believe because we're the only right way. That's actually stemming from an insecurity. That is a lack of strength. And people cover up their lack of strength, their weakness, their insecurities by going, well, I'm being strong and I'm going to conquer and I'm going to destroy and I'm going to erase the things that are different from me. Well, that's actually a sign of weakness. A sign of strength is like, okay, so you do things differently. How can I learn from what you're doing? And how can you learn from what I'm doing? And can we compare and contrast what works for you, what works for me, to find out ultimately what's really going on here? That's the true strength. Those any of the religions that have to stamp each other out because they don't agree, they don't have this same beliefs or the same practice or the same dogma, it's really that I'm just trying to hide their insecurities and weaknesses ultimately.
Okay. Yes, it makes sense, but that counts for everything. For elections, politics, football teams.
Everything. Everything. You're absolutely right. I actually will hold religion in the same category, exactly that, sports and politics. It's just people trying to enforce their social identity by getting other people to agree to their little box of reality, their tiny little box of reality, to make themselves feel comfortable.
Yeah, we don't like uncomfort. Our mind likes to stay where it is.
That's right.
So, okay, then yeah, next question on the long list I have here is you started talking about the Black Mirror and you talked about Ouija boards and all these kind of things. We didn't go really much deeper. I mean, we know you're purple, whatever, magenta color, which is a higher frequency, because you try to keep yourself on that high frequency. But what is a Black Mirror? Do I just imagine, when I have like my smartphone, which is turned off, so it's a Black Mirror?
That's actually some really, really, really good points that you make. And I'll right off the bat dispel it. A black mirror is nothing more than me going down to the store and buying a picture frame with glass in it and then spray painting the back of that glass with some flat black spray paint. That's all it is. It's just a frame, glass, and paint. Nothing more. Okay. There's nothing weird. There's nothing mystical about it. But like we talked about mysticism, it's going in and understanding what our connection is to universe, to the reality, to the other layers of existence, right? The black mirror gives us the opportunity to shift our dimensional awareness. I literally teach people how to shift their dimensional perception of what's in the mirror so that not only does their visual awareness of the space that they're in change, but their mental awareness, their spiritual awareness shifts to a different dimensional frequency. And because now that their awareness is shifted to a different dimensional frequency, we can now connect with beings that exist in another layer of reality. It's not necessarily like scrying, where you see things in the mirror, where you can project images in it. That does happen. It absolutely does happen. But you can think of the Black Mirror as more like a portal opening to another realm, allowing not only your consciousness to slip into another state of existence, but allowing other beings to find an overlapping place with our reality so that we can communicate, that we can connect, we can share energy. And those beings could be ascended beings, like the ascended masters. They could be deities, they could be angels, they could even be the spirits of loved ones who've passed on to another life. But ultimately, it's just a frame, glass, and paint, but it is a tool to shift your mind into a state where you can make those connections.
Yeah. So basically, it's a tool.
Yes.
So you could theoretically use your turned off smartphone because it has a black mirror.
I'm really glad that you bring that up because it is your mind that shifts. You're absolutely right. The TV turned off could be a black mirror.
Yeah,
Your
I have
telephone,
several. I mean, I have like my iMac, which is broken, and my wife's external screen, which are completely black, standing here. One is reflective, the other one is matte.
exactly. And when I teach classes on a black mirror, one of the things I tend to do is I keep the mirror covered with a cloth and I have it in a special ritual space. And there's a special ritual for opening and working with the mirror. That way, only when the mirror in the ritual space with the ritual is done does your mind shift into that awareness and that consciousness. Otherwise, you could easily use your phone just to become a black mirror, and your mind would shift unwantedly into that state where you're connecting
Oh,
with things. So you want the ritual, you want the process so that your mind knows, oh, now is the time I can tune in. Now's the time to do it. And that way, when you're sitting in front of the computer and you're about ready to turn it on, your mind doesn't start to slip into black mirror mode and start making the connections. It's like, no, there's no ritual, there's no process. It's not the same thing. It's just really coming down to training your mind for the right time, the right place, the proper set and setting. And if you're not in the proper set and setting, then it's just a mirror. It's just a TV screen. It's just a computer. It's not a mirror at all.
what is the danger if you wouldn't do it like that and your mind, every time you look at your phone, changes to the black mirror setting?
When I work with a paranormal, I have a universal principle of similarities attract and perpetuate. Meaning, if you're going into a seance situation and you're afraid, you're certain you're going to contact a demon or an evil entity, well, that's what you're going to draw to you. But if you go into it with a higher state of mind, a higher state of consciousness that you're looking to connect with somebody, that's what you're going to draw to you. And so if you're doing the ritual to get into the mirror mindset, you're into a higher state of mind, you're into a higher state of consciousness so that you can open that mirror. However, if you're doing it just casually and it's around and about, it's here or there, let's say you're at work and your boss has just stressed you out, giving you a huge workload assignment. The weekend is coming. You know, you have a lot to do on the weekend. You're now angry, you're frustrated, and you don't have the proper mindset, the proper training, the set and setting. And then you go to sit in front of your computer, you get into a mirror mindset with the anger, the frustration, and all of that. You're going to be drawing more of that energy and entities that will feed off of that energy to you if you're not in the proper mindset for it. So the real danger is being aware of your emotional state and your mindset state, knowing that is what you draw to you. And so the whole ritual is not only setting sacred space, but getting your mindset into the right place where if you're just out in the world, out and about doing it all the time, this is where people run into problems with the Ouija board because we
So,
see so many TVs and movies with the Ouija board where people have bad things going on with it. The planchette flies across the room, the Ouija board goes flying up in the air. Now somebody's possessed, flopping around in their bed, cussing and puking and turning their head around, right? Because we see that in the movies so many times. But in the real world, a Ouija board is just a piece of wood with letters on it. And if you are doing it with that fear mindset, like you saw in the movies, that's what you're going to get.
okay, yeah, yeah, I've stopped watching these type of movies, but I guess we know that someone which watches The Exorcist, I think it was at certain age, said that it be with me. I've seen Jaws. It's called the White Shark in German, if you translate it that way.
Uh-huh.
So Der Weiße Hai. Jesus, I was 11, 12. This is probably one of those movies, and another one with a weird kind of, I don't know, alien thing in the forest, and the guy stopped the car and looked at because he thought he was hitting a deer or a dog, and then it took hold of him. Jesus. I've not been sleeping well for many, many years, and I'm still having
Uh-oh.
nightmares of swimming in the open ocean. I know by now of all these documentaries that sharks normally are not attacking. So I'm not really watching all these movies. I'm aware of, I've seen The Shining, and that's really well made. But nowadays I have the feeling it's too much effect stuff. But anyway, a movie coming into my mind is, how is it called? With Patrick Swayze and Whoopi Goldberg, where he dies.
Ghost.
Is it Ghost?
Ghost.
Because that was in my head. I wasn't sure.
Geist.
I don't know if it's called Geist in German, actually.
Wir haben Geist.
No, but that one was very interesting. I liked it. It's not so scary. It is a bit scary, but it's kind of. So how do you see when I say Ghost, that movie? Do you think that's something it really can happen like that, or it's just all made up?
Most of the movies are all made up.
Yeah.
I actually have to admit, I've never seen Ghost. I've heard about it. I've heard the tales that he died, that there are shadow people trying to grab people when they recently died to take them to a bad place and stuff like that. And no, it really is back to your mindset. Similarities attract and perpetuate. And so the spirits, when you cross over, it's whatever your mindset is. If you're doing the fear and, oh, I'm going to be burning and I'm going to be suffering and torment, maybe, maybe. When it really comes to that crossover, what I've been taught by the whispers, by the spirits, is ask yourself 3 questions. What do you believe is there? What have you been taught to believe that the other side is like and what you can expect and how things are going to be? Second, what do you feel? And this is the key word, feel. What do you feel that you deserve to have when you cross over to the other side? And third, what do you wish for? What do you want to be there for you on the other side? And realize that at first, when you're making that crossover and you're starting to awaken and you're starting to become aware, that you're going to get some combination of all of that. Whichever is the strongest is what you're going to experience more. And eventually, the more time that you're there, the more processing that you go through, those 3 things will fade away and you'll start to experience another layer of reality, a different layer of reality that is based loosely off of those 3 things, but it is more of an interconnected, agreed upon reality with the beings that you're most closest to. Because our reality here is an agreed upon reality. The people and the beings that you're closest to on the other side, you will also agree upon a reality to coexist within, like a reality bubble to coexist in, and also expect that that's going to evolve and change over time as you evolve and change over time too.
Yeah, interesting. I've not
It's
heard
not
that before.
fixed.
Yeah, crossover. Ask yourself these 3 questions. Let's see if I remember that when I get there. I've never heard that.
It's a good practice to do. It's a good contemplative practice.
Yeah. I was just also thinking, when you said, well, use the similarities and perpetuate. Well, you attract more of the same. When I did ayahuasca, it started like a mushroom experience because I did one before to be able to let go, because I knew if I don't let go, the whole ceremony is not worth anything because my ego will hold on too strong. I said, another mushroom experience. I didn't expect that. And then I started seeing skulls and I said, I do not need to have a horror movie. And the skulls were gone. And then I just had an in-body experience twice. So I was like wondering, I went there with curiosity, a little bit of fear, right? Because it's the first time you do it and everyone is fearful. And I wanted to learn something. I guess whatever you do a ceremony in whatever form it is, cacao, cannabis, dancing, breath, whatever you want to do, you have to go in there with certain intentions, right? How do you see that? Because you work a lot more with these things. How should someone prepare for whatever ceremony you go for? It could be just a dancing ceremony if you don't want to take anything else.
Yeah. I honestly, I've never done ayahuasca. I've never done mushrooms, cannabis. Sure. LSD, nope. I think cannabis, alcohol, and absinthe, really.
That's
Absinthe is
it.
my primary alcohol that I'll drink. Absinthe is good stuff.
That's Swiss stuff.
We can talk about them. Oh, yeah. Uh, Swiss stuff. Let's see here.
Yeah,
Speaking
at
of
least I think
which,
it came from Switzerland, absinthe. Die Grüne See. I
yep.
I cannot really see it.
Then,
It's like, it takes some time until
oh,
the
it's clandestine from Switzerland.
yeah, I can see the Swiss crossing.
Swiss absinthe. uh, but to prepare for yourself for a ritual, for like seance or other kind of working,
Yeah, it
what I
could also be
yeah,
like
it's all the
mirror
same.
work or something like that. Doesn't matter.
It's all it's all the same thing. You want to imagine as you go wall by wall by wall that you can trace the outline of the wall if you want, that the wall before you is becoming solid, like stone, like iron. Then you do that for each of the walls so that they are like you can imagine you're set in a space, the floor, the ceiling, that is impenetrable. Then you change your own feeling. You become aware of feeling sacred. Like you remember a place and a time when you were in the presence of something sacred. For some people, that could be in a church or a temple. For some people, that could be going for a walk in nature where they felt like they were in the presence of God or a God in nature. Or it could be when they were reading a book or a ceremony or they had a moment of enlightenment. Try to remember that feeling that you had in that time when you were in the presence of being with something sacred, and notice in your body where you're feeling that sacred feeling and just breathe into it. Breathe into it, expand it, make it stronger, make it bigger. Let it fill the space around you. Some people imagine it as if the room is filling with white light. That's great. Some people imagine it as if there's a sound like a singing bowl filling the entire room with that energy. It's all energy, light, sound, it's all energy. But have that feeling of sacredness, that sacred awareness. Fill that room around you, filling your body, your being in the time and space of here and now. Just let yourself be surrounded by this sacred energy and tune your mind into that sacred awareness. That will put you into sacred space internally, externally. You can imagine that if there could be negative beings around you, that they're being pushed away, that they're moving out of that because they don't want to be around that energy. And energy that negative beings don't want to be around include laughter. So if you're laughing and you're having a good time, it's going to chase them away. If you go into a state of awe and wonder, like you're that presence of something sacred and holy and amazing, or even if it's just a piece of artwork that is really beautiful, being in that state of awe and wonder, it will drive those negative things away. And here's a little bonus tip. If you can allow yourself to be in a state of awe and wonder for the negative being that could be in your presence, counterintuitive, I know. But if you can sense and be aware that, let's say there's a shadow entity there that's negative that you don't like to be there, allow yourself to have a moment of going, wow, see, I knew you were real. I knew that existed. How cool is that? You were amazing. Thank you for being here and showing me and proving that this is there. That thing is going to go, what? No, 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 no. I don't want any part of this. And it's going to leave the room because you have that sense of awe and wonder. And also, if you can get into a flow state where, like, you're working on a project or you're doing some meditation or you're doing some chanting or you're doing ecstatic work, that will put your mind into a flow state that connects you to a higher state of being. Just doing those things will put you into a sacred space, into a safe place, so that you can do working with a Ouija board, you can do automatic writing, you can do the black mirror, you can do all sorts of ceremony because you are now in this safe, sacred space. And anytime you feel a little bit of slippage, like you're doing your work and all of a sudden there's a weird thump, you startle yourself, laugh, let yourself laugh at it. Go, hey, that was really funny. That was great. And then go back and remember that sacred feeling, that sacred connection you have, breathe into it, let that fill the space. And then you're back into able to work again. But if you hear that weird knocking, and you're like, "Oh, no, what was here? What's going on? No." And then you let yourself slide into that fear state and take over, that could be a problem. But just laugh at it. It resets your brain. Go back into that sense of awe and wonder, like, wow, something knocked. Let me give you an example. Sitting in this chair one day, I've got a big, heavy bench on the wall next to me that I can't even reach. It's not even close to me. But I was sitting with a little black mirror in my hand, staring into it. I got into flow state because I was in a deep meditative state. I felt like I had made some nice connection with some entities and beings, and we were having some telepathic communication. I know, wacky woo woo, telepathic communication where we're talking, communicating. And all of a sudden, the bench next to me starts going, "Duh, duh, 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 duh," and I'm nowhere near it. But something is tapping the bench on the floor. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. I could have either gone to, oh no, there's something scary. What do I do? Or go, that was really cool. Do that again. That was fun. Let's make that happen again. That shifts my mind state. That shifts my emotional state so that I can enjoy the experience and I stay in a higher frame of mind, and that the beings around me are also at a higher state of being so that there's no harm happening to anybody in any way.
Yeah, I mean, there's many, many things triggering now for me. One, we talked last time also where you go like on roller coasters and you start being fearful and you start laughing about it. I mean, fear and excitement is the same feeling in the body. And you will get others to feel more comfortable as well because you're laughing and you're having a great time. But as you said, you change your mindset, your whole state of vibrations. You're gonna enjoy it more. Sorry, that was a little bit of metal here. Um,
See, there you go.
that was my finger because I'm using my hands, right? I'm not like the Scandinavians, which are not using the body to talk. And the other thing was that that's what I'm told. Like I'm using too much my hands. People have to look at me when they talk to me. They cannot look somewhere else because I use my hands to talk. So I
Come
use
on, we have one mouth. You could either be eating with it or you can be talking with it. You can't do both at the same time, right? Very Scandinavian thinking.
Yes, I know. But you know, I'm a Swiss, but I'm not even Italian, so I would even use my hands even more, or Spanish. I mean, that's another. Yeah, it was just because changing your setting that you're enjoying the moment, and this is very important. No matter what it is, it could be a job interview, it could be whatever. But I really like what you explained here. I mean, for the ceremony, basically, it's like when you go to a meditative state. As you said, you were really deep in meditation, looking in the mirror, and then this happened. And I was just thinking, like, okay, trying to feel the like sacred place. I could also, what I heard for people which have a problem there, it's a try to feel when you were loving something or were in awe of something really strongly. I think that's kind of like the same feeling. It might transmit better for some people. And then just hold that feeling and let it grow in you, like you said, and then fill up the whole floor. And as you said, some people imagine the whole room or wherever they are is filling with white light. I heard for having a good meditative experience, and that was, yeah, Deborah King, I think. She said, imagine that the floor you're sitting in, wherever it is white, and white light is lifting up all the way through and is filtering all the negativity away up to the roof and goes out. It's kind of a similar thing, right? So you're better prepared for the,
Exactly.
yeah. So you're in the meditative state. So, and that's actually good. No matter what you do, cacao, cannabis ceremony. I have no idea how that works, but I heard about it. Too many people are just using it to
Um,
relax.
and I'll do a little plug here if I could. On my website, kaedrich.com, and there's a page there for guided meditations. I have a bunch of albums that I put together with different guided meditations. And one of them is for connecting with higher self. And you could do that before working with the ceremonies, connecting with higher self in different ways. I have another one for clearing negativity, that not only clearing negativity through your body, but in the space around you. So you can use that for clearing space. And I even put together one for seance working, for doing the paranormal, so that you are connected to sacredness, so that you are clearing away the negativity, so that you can do the kind of ceremonies that you want without having any problems. So there are a few guided meditation options that I've got on my website. So if you guys want to try it out, they're there for you.
Well, definitely. Yeah, you talked about it last time that you're working on it, and now they're live. Right?
Oh yeah, there's 5 albums of meditations and I got 2 more coming.
You were productive since you definitely got rid of that little entity which made you lazy and enjoy the moments.
Well, that's right. And I've got some big projects I'm working on, some really big ones.
That's perfect. So, um, these guided meditations you have for,
Mhm.
connecting to your higher self, clearing negativity. How is it if someone has no experience at all? Is it
Perfect.
perfect for them?
Yeah,
So it,
I wrote the music for it, and in the music, I embedded isochronic tones, which work kind of like binaural beats, but you don't have to have headphones to use them. They will alter your state of consciousness just by listening to the music, just by listening to my voice. And so actually all you have to do is just sit, play the play the track, and just follow along with what I'm asking you to imagine and pretend like is going on around with you, and it's really happening for you. Just have to sit there and listen.
well, that's going to be interesting. I've tried a lot of this YouTube, but I've been also told, slow down. You went too far. And I definitely can feel it. But on the other hand, it's also end of October. We are close to Halloween. That's also why our nice outfit. But I think for you, it's the standard outfit anyway.
Hey, I'm spooky. What can I say?
Yeah, I miss. Yeah, I thought for the listeners, I thought I have an hour more, so I would have gotten some hands and other Halloween stuff. But this is good enough. I love the light I have here. Black Mirror. Now we know how
Yes.
it works, right? We know
Mhm.
it's basically just a piece of a frame with a black background, and we don't want to be getting into the mindset whenever some Black Mirror looks at us. We want to have the ceremony around it. And there are some guided meditations on kaedrich.com, which we link to you. You can use for it. I've seen you before we started. You were burning probably sage or something like that.
Palo Santo.
Pane Santo. That
Mhm.
looks like a wood.
Yep, it's a sacred wood. It helps to raise energies, clear negativity, and it smells good.
Yeah. Are you doing that for all the ceremonies you're doing, all works?
No, this is just my casual clearing space.
Oh, sure.
But when it comes to like the deeper work, the deeper ceremonies, this is a homemade incense I made with all sorts of stuff, galangal, cinnamon, dragon's blood, red sandalwood, cedar, all sorts of different stuff is in here. And this is what I use for some of the deeper ceremonial ritual workings.
And that's also you burn it, right? So it gives the
Mhm.
smoke.
Yeah, I put it on a piece of charcoal, self-lighting charcoal, which I don't have one handy here to show you, but I just put it on a piece of charcoal and burn it, just something like that.
Yes.
And
Okay. Yeah, because that's basic clearing of the bad energies, right? And have a safe space.
changes the energy of the space into the place that I want it to be.
Okay. Yeah, I know cedarwood and sandalwood and all these things. We have essential oils, and I really like it.
Yep,
It's a very calming. It's also with sage, clary sage is also very calming. But I've also heard that some people use sage to burn, um, to clean off bad energies. So that's going
they
a
do
bit
indeed.
more. Yeah. Now we just go a little bit more in the woo land here, but
That's where I live. That's my home.
but that's basically. I mean, the people listening to that will expect it, especially the ones which have heard the first episode, right? I mean, they should not be surprised where we are
That's
here.
right.
Um,
Oh, especially as much as we've talked about ghosts and paranormal and Black Mirror and stuff. Yeah, this is easy. Easy now.
yeah, no, I'm almost bought the sage, but we have the essential oils, so I'm using the oils at the moment. Eventually, I will also go
Perfect.
to burning stuff because I liked actually the smell. When we did ayahuasca, I do not remember. Probably cedarwood and sandalwood was used. I really like the smell of the smoke that you get from these different woods. It's just
Absolutely.
good vibration.
Exactly.
um, when we talk about that Black Mirror again, coming back, what is your most memorable experience with it? Besides, is it the table which is shaking, or did you have something else like a good insight which was really driving your life in the right direction, or do you also have customers where you worked with it and they had really the aha moment?
There are some very interesting things that have come up. Overall, it's been life changing because little by little, it's changing my energy state. It's moving me into a higher state of being, which is really beneficial. Um, let's see, colors. One of my favorite things that I experience with a mirror is, like I told you, sometimes you can see some things with it. And there are definitely times where I can see colors and shapes, but don't ask me to tell you what colors I'm seeing. I can't tell you if they're like red, green, blue, violet, whatever. They are vibrant, brilliant colors in the blackness of the mirror, but they are colors that I've never seen before, and I don't have a name for it. I cannot describe, like, I can't tell you what blue looks like, right? Other than, your hoodie's blue, but I can't describe blue. I just can't describe these colors, but I can tell you they're not like colors we've ever seen. It just blows my mind. Uh, One of the things that interestingly happened is when I teach the Black Mirror class, I've been teaching it as 5 classes over the course of 5 weeks. I'm going to turn it into a weekend workshop. One of the classes, on purpose, we set to draw in a negative entity. We do this on purpose so that the students know what it feels like to be in the presence of a negative entity, so that they understand the feeling, so they can keep their wits about them, so I can control the space also, and they know what to do should something unexpected or unwanted happen where they're doing their own mirror working and they bring a negative entity into the space with them. Well, during the course of this, it was described that there was like this giant serpent energy running around the floor, running around people's feet. And it was definitely uncomfortable energy, which is what it's supposed to be. And we dealt with it. We put everything back. We closed off. We did our clearing. Everything was great. And when one of the students got home, she reported that her sandal had broken. Something broke her sandal while she was in class. So that stuff like that just blows my mind. Or one of my favorite things that happened real recently is I moved into a new office space where I can do some deeper working with people, some more intense working with a black mirror. And so far, I've had a couple of people there, and we've done our own little ceremonies together. And I've done quite a few on my own. Now, I've never been a huge believer of ectoplasm. To me, ectoplasm is stuff out of the spiritualist movement of the 1800s. They're faked photographs, and almost all of them are faked, if not all of them are faked. So I didn't believe in them. But many years ago, I was doing a ritual with some folks down in New Orleans, and a woman, while working with a black mirror, she was doing an energy exchange, some energy working. We experienced ectoplasm coming out of her mouth. We were looking at each other going, really? Are we seeing this? So ectoplasm really happened many years at New Orleans. And I have not seen it since until I moved into my new office, where this time I was actually seeing the ectoplasm coming out of the mirror. And I was like, well, now that's very interesting. And believe me, an open minded skeptic until I experience this thing. I'll be open to think, okay, maybe it's there, maybe not. But I was not a believer in ectoplasm. But now I've seen it and experienced ectoplasm twice in my life. There's something to it. And it was all because of the black mirror working.
Wow. Yeah, it's I talked to my sister and she had some experiences where these higher beings basically appeared always when there was someone else around or a group of people. So she was not believing that her mind is tricking her. So, I mean, you said the others looked at you as well and said they see it. So for you as a skeptic, that was probably kind of like, hey, there we go. Now you better believe.
Exactly. I mean, still one of my most favorite recent experiences with a seance is I was leading a group of about 20 people in seance. And part of the way I do seance is it's not me standing at the front of the room doing everything. Sure, there's some of that, but I teach people how to use a pendulum. I teach people how to do the Ouija board. I teach people how to connect intuitively. And one of the exercises is automatic writing, where we open up the mirror, we open up the beings, and I have people start writing, and we do a little automatic writing experience. After we're done, we come back and we share notes, who wrote what things down, and we compare and see what similarities are. And as we're going around the room, this one lady is like, I don't understand this. The only thing I really got is I'm writing down the lyrics to row, row, row your boat. At that same time, somebody across the room said, yeah, that's the only thing I got too. So we had 2 people on the same opposite side of the room, like straight across from each other. writing down row, row, row your boat, not understanding why.
Mm.
I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like you can just push it away, or you can see something. It's all up in your mind, right? It's being open to it, or pushing it away. There's just the other thing while you were talking in between, since our last talk, my sister, yeah, because we are connecting more and more over the distance.
Right.
But she told me, it must be the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, she went horseback riding again with someone else, with a dog and two horses. And the horses and the dog stopped and looked all in one direction. And they're like, okay. They looked at each other, they looked in the direction, and there was like a, a bigger bush tree. And there was no wind, nothing, but one branch was just moving back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And my sister was like, do you see the same as me? There's nothing. Why is it moving? My sister took the phone out, started videotaping. The moment you pressed play, it stopped.
Those are nature spirits.
Yes, and my daughter, I showed the video to my daughter. I said, look, there was a branch moving. And she's like, yeah, must have been an angel, because if there's a bird on a tree, on a branch, it will move. But an angel we cannot see. And angels have wings.
One of the things I have people do when they're out in nature and we're looking for nature spirits is exactly like that. Is there a branch on the tree that's moving that just doesn't seem to move like everything else? Are there little bits of grass that move? Now, there could be an animal in the grass, sure, but are there little bits of grass that move? Or the opposite, are all of the grasses blowing in the wind, but there's one patch that's not moving? Why is that? Or if you go to a stream and you see the ripples on the water in the river or the stream, but there's like this smooth spot that's not moving. And then all of a sudden that smooth spot will just like move through the water while all the ripples are going on around it. But there's just one smooth spot. It's like, what's going on? Or if you're staring at a fire and you see the same shape in a fire, because you know fire changes all the time. But if you see the same shape in the fire, just kind of moving around in the fire, it's like, oh, there's a fire spirit there. That's how you can look for nature spirits.
Yeah, it's because of the water thing you talked last time with the ripples that I thought that was really interesting. What
Absolutely.
triggered my mind is I did some awareness training. That was one of the first meditation I did to try to push myself out, like look at myself from outside my body.
Uh-huh.
I somehow can, but I don't know if it's just my imagination because I'm good in visualization of these things, or if it's really, outside the body. But I was sitting, it was in January, February, I guess, so dark here in Denmark. I was sitting at our big window looking outside. I had just this feeling. The lights, the street lights are just like a figure looking at me, like a huge figure. And then I opened my eyes and it was still there. And I couldn't see it the other days. It was just that day. It just looked like a big, not threatening, but still like something big.
The Norse would call that a Jotun, a giant, a special
Jette.
nature.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jette in
yep,
Danish.
special kind of nature spirit giant. They're amazing. I've got one over at my new office space, and it's wonderful to work with. They're great. They're not evil. They're not destructive. Well, I'm not going to say they're not destructive. They're natural, right? A tornado or a big windstorm or storm of all kind could be destructive, but it's natural. And a Jotun, respect it, cherish it. They're awesome. They're great.
Yeah, so now let's just go with the flow. Now, I talked today about Yeti and Bigfoots because I have a friend which I interviewed, Mandy. She said, I don't remember if she said her grandmother or someone who a relative has seen it, or herself. I don't remember that. But she sent the article from a man, and that must be 150 years or longer ago, which was in the forest somewhere in the US and getting bitten by a snake, by a poisonous snake, and waking up and being surrounded by four big beings.
Wow.
Um, and you had the feeling he's being observed by things, right? And these beings just made sure that he survives, and then they left him. He said it's kind of like you look at them, but you don't see them. They're like I don't know if they can change the vibration so we can see them or not. But it's like they're part of the nature, right? So they're standing in a tree next there. And then when you look again, that whoosh is gone or whatever. So something like that. So how, and the Yeti, we know there's so many people which believe in the Yeti in the Himalayas and stuff
Mhm.
like that. What is your take? What is your belief there?
I wish I knew more about, I mean, I know a bit about Bigfoot, Yeti, Sasquatch, those sort of things. I would love to see one of these days. I'm not sure if they're real or not. I hope they are. I would love to see it. But what you're talking about, the beings that you can see, but if you go to look directly at them, they're not there. Where I live here in the US, in Colorado, just north of Denver, my neighborhood has a lot of shadow people. And by shadow people, even the people who don't believe in ghosts are freaked out by it. You'll be driving down the street and you swear you see somebody standing on the corner or off the side of the street on the sidewalk, just walking. And then you go to look at them and they're gone. And then you go back to driving and you go look away. And then there's maybe another one. And it's like a shadow of a person. But you go to look directly at them, they're gone. They're not there. Recently, I took a film crew to a place nearby called Riverdale Road. There's a little park there, and there it's considered to be one of the most haunted roads in the US. That's why I took us there to see what we could find. And as we're walking out among the trees in the darkness, just the moon above us, she starts screaming because she's seeing something in the woods, some dark figures in the woods. And I'm like, yeah, of course. We're talking shadow people. I told you lots of shadow people and nature spirits here. They're not harmful, but you can kind of see that they're there. But if you were to shine a light in that direction, they're gone. If you were to look directly at them, they're gone. But you just kind of look out of your peripheral vision, they're there.
Okay. But, but, as you growing up in today's world, right?
Mhm.
Um, and you experience something like that as a kid, you see something, you're sure. How do you know it's not just a branch moving, a bush moving? Because it's out, it's always on the peripheral and you like get the goosebumps and you look over it, nothing is there. You realize, okay, everything is okay. And, when you're young and you're on a school trip or something like that happens, the grown ups will always tell you there's no ghosts. Something like that doesn't happen. How do you know when is it really something and it was just a shadow from, yeah, nature moving in the moonlight?
That's very, very common, very tricky thing to do. Most likely, it could be the wind blowing. Maybe it's an animal, a bird or a squirrel or something landed on the branch and made it go. That's probably the case 95% of the time, almost all the time. It's probably something really mundane. And I'm very likely to discount anything going on as just something ordinary and normal because that's almost always what it is. But those weird times where you just can't explain it, where you don't know it, or if you trust your intuition, you trust your intuitive hit that you've got something going on, then I would trust that. So, for example, if somebody thinks they're living in a haunted house, their house is haunted, and this has happened. You go into a room that's really got the creepy feeling and you don't know what's going on, and it's just this one room, and the lights are a little bit flickery. There's a problem in there. There's definitely a ghost. My first answer to you, if you were to come to me and this has happened, is get an electrician out there, check the wiring, make sure everything's bottled up. Because if you have a loose wire in a room, you're gonna have a room full of negative ions, and those negative ions will create that creepy feeling. That's proven over and over. It's just negative ions. And then if you got that loose connection going on the wiring, there's your flickering lights. It's not a ghost messing with you. You just need an electrician out there to tighten up the wires. Now, if you get the electrician out there, and this has happened also, tightened up the wires, everything is looking good, but the lights will still flicker and go on and off. The different electronics in the room will go crazy, and you still get that weird feeling. Then it's time for me to come in and take a look, see what's going on in that room, see if we can make connection with a spirit if it's there, and find out what's going on and how we can work together with that spirit. Mind you, I'm not there to clear the spirit out and make it go away necessarily, unless that's what needs to happen. It's more about how can you coexist in a better way with the spirit in that room.
Yes, now I don't remember who told me that a woman was working here in Denmark. I think she's Romanian, Bulgarian, Polish. I don't remember, but she's not from Denmark. And then she was doing the same as we do, probably Skype or whatever call. And her husband said, "Who's that woman behind you?" And then she looked closer on her image because she was focusing like I do now on your image. She looked at her image and there was a woman behind her. She turned and there was no one. And she could feel it. Uh, I do not know who it is, but I've heard from a friend that he knows that woman here in Denmark. And he also has seen people go through a wall himself.
Hmm.
That was in Romania, or going up the wall. But I just don't want to feel about it. So,
That's normal stuff for me.
yes, I mean, um, yeah, we talked about shadows.
Mhm.
And I was thinking, is there a shadow inside you, like some part of you that you pushed away due to whatever? You felt vulnerable and you didn't want to feel vulnerable, so you pushed it away. And that is kind of poking you. And you go in the forest and you get scared and you get this scared feeling all the time. And then you see these ghosts everywhere. So now you're not feeling comfortable. So even your intuition says something is wrong. Could that also be something inside you, like something deep inside you without having the spirits from nature spirits?
Absolutely. We project spirits all the time. We create what's called a thought form. Uh, the Norse, oh, come on, brain. Norse, hukam, thought form. Still the same thing, kind of thing, mind shape. That we are powerfully creative beings as humans. And if we have the same emotional state over and over and over again, we'll create this little ball of energy of that and of that emotion. Because every energy is an emotion, every emotion is an energy. They're the same thing. And this thing will be out there existing. And let's say it's programmed with fear, with scare me, that as you're outside walking around or in your home or whatever, and this thing needs to get fed, it'll poke you with some of that fear energy. And if you got a good imagination, your imagination could go on and start projecting things and seeing things that may or may not be there, or you're tapping into something that's there. Similarities attract and perpetuate, right? This
Mhm.
thing's poking you with fear energy. You're projecting out fear energy. Maybe there's something out there related to fear energy. It could be a revenant of a person that died horribly and she's got a lot of fear going on because of the way she died. You're now tapped into that. You're seeing that. It's like, so there's this whole cycle of fear going on because of that energy state that's going on internally.
Okay, so that means, let's say there's a group of people and this one person has been pushing something really down and this kind of fear. And she feels and sees that person. Actually, she sees it. And the other persons around are in a higher state, higher vibration. They will not see that entity, right?
Correct. And in fact, that's one of the things I teach people about protecting yourself is that if you are in that negative fear state, that anger state, whatever those emotions are, and those entities are attached to you and they're messing with you, when you finally are able to clear that connection, when you're able to separate from it and you move to a higher state, that awe and wonder, you move into a higher state of being, it's almost like you slipped into another layer of reality or another level of existence where to these beings, you no longer exist. They're looking around going, where did she go? Where is she? What happened? And she's up here somewhere else. And these guys are like, hey, what's going on? And then maybe, just maybe, she encounters an ex and triggers her back into that state. And she comes back here temporarily. They go, oh, there you are. Ha. And then that reminds her, oh, I got to keep doing my work. I got to get back into practice, make sure this guy is cut off from me so that she doesn't bring me that space again. And she moves back into that state. And these things down here are going, she was just here a minute ago. Where did she go? And she's like, no, I'm going on, moving on, not attaching to that man anymore because that man put me back into this state. So I'm growing and moving on beyond that. And so that is an example about how shadows, psychological shadows, can affect us at the paranormal level.
Um, will these entities stay around for long, or will they eventually say, okay, I cannot find anything to attach to, so they will move on? Or they will wait until something comes to pick them up?
to think of it in those linear terms doesn't quite apply the same way here. They will just be in a reality. Let me put it this way as a metaphor. You know how you could say that you're close to somebody? You know, a son saying, "I'm really always been close with my father, and it still feels like we're close, even though he died 5 years ago. We're close." It's because there's that emotional bond that keeps them together, that has everything going. So there's no distance between father and son, even though he's dead in in the spirit world and he moved far, far away. They're still close emotionally. So spiritually, they're close together. And these beings here are close to anybody who is the same kind of energy. So it doesn't matter. And if she's moved on and grown on it, that's fine. They're close to somebody else that has that kind of energy that they need anyway. And they're like, cool, let's just work together then.
Because theoretically, I mean, for the listeners, right? And I'm too early in this, and I have to be really careful what I absorb and what I'm not. Right? You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
But what I understand here is like now I'm in Denmark. Let's say I drop down a few levels more than I'm already am. So now something, because I talked to you, something over in the US feels that energy. Will that be basically how I could attract it, or will it have to be geographically? It doesn't matter. It could be all around the world.
There is no geography when it comes to the spiritual realm. There is no time, space.
Yeah,
There's just connection.
that's just connection. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. um, yeah, I think we are pretty much around here. I think, and after 1 hour, I think we can try to close this chapter down,
Okay.
and then we can take another episode with another topic. Let's see
Absolutely.
how the listeners like that. I mean, they can write back to us if they will have us change something. Um, I really have this feeling that there must be kind of a call to action for people listening and saying, okay, I, for many, many years felt something is dragging me down, keeping me like low, like we talked about. Now, we didn't register it. We talked about beforehand that when I go working out, or I used to work out, that I was more feeling alive. I felt more present. And then you were like surprising to me, saying, when I'm more awake working out, what did you say?
When working out for me is lifting weights. I love it because it is a mind body meditation. Like when I'm doing a bench press, I'm aware of my chest, I'm aware of my shoulders, my arms, I'm aware of that entire movement. And so it connects me deeply from mind and body for that entire time that I'm in there doing the correct form, the correct everything. So that moves me into a higher state of being, not only because it's producing the chemicals in my body, it's getting rid of the cortisol, the adrenaline, it's burning off all of the negative neurotransmitters and putting the good stuff in there, but it also is my mind body meditation space. So it helps me to be in a higher state of being by lifting weights. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And you also mentioned that when you look at the others, which are just going up and down, back and forth, right? Um, to get stronger and everything, it's kind of like harder. And I think that's Schwarzenegger had an idea where he wants to go, right? But I also think for him, it must have been some kind of meditation.
Mhm.
Um, the way he made it. I haven't heard him talking about it, but I know he was very focused. He knew it's going to be hard now, but I'm going to look a certain way and I'm going to win what I want. In his case, for me, it's exactly like you described it. I work out and then I'm kind of like in the moment. And for me, it was like, because I feel like I'm dragged down for 20 plus years, 30 years, that when I work out, that I'm in the present, that I'm in the moment, because you cannot be anywhere else when you have the weight above you, or you make a squat with a lot of weight. You don't want to be in the past or the future. You don't want to be afraid of something, and then you fall over with the weight on your neck. So you're there. You're in the now completely, in the body and everything. And I think for me that we also said I'm reading Eckhart Tolle right now. I couldn't stand listening to him for many, many years. And I've been told for at least 18 months or something, 16, 18 months to read the book if I cannot listen to him. It has changed. I've been listening to him a few times. So something in me must have changed, or his way of talking has changed. And reading the book is also like the power of now, like really be present in the moment and realizing that your mind is creating the past and the future. When you realize that the mind is playing tricks on you that way, you can be more present in the moment. And I think for me, unknowingly working out was one of those moments where I was present and therefore alive. Um, that's funny now that I talk. I haven't voiced it that way, but I said it to people. I feel alive when I work out. So just don't tell me this is a drug. For me, it was a way of, as you said, body, mind, time, connection, mindfulness, whatever it is, meditation. And because many times I just feel like I'm dragging around. So I feel like I have a lot of, coming back to the call to action, having a lot of weight on me or entities or something dragging me down. A year ago, I said, I feel like there's like ropes on me with some hooks in the ground. For some people, this is this material world we accumulate at home, which drags us down, and then let go of many things. And then you will feel lighter because you don't have to fear of losing stuff or whatever it is. But how can, call to action, how can people find out what is this thing that holds them back, and how could they work on themselves to get to a higher state besides listening to your meditation?
Definitely. I would definitely always recommend working with somebody who knows shadow work, because exactly what you're describing is shadows. It's those part of us that we don't necessarily want to acknowledge, or that we don't like to acknowledge, or that we usually project it negatively onto other people. But the thing about shadow is it's a part of you that's hiding from the light. It's and if you're becoming aware of that shadow moment, like feeling like something is dragging you down, or that you don't want to go do something, or this person is just making you upset and you don't want to deal with them, those are shadows. And what you want to do is, in a safe way, definitely do, like I talked about the ritual, put yourself in that sacred setting before doing this. Allow yourself to sink into that feeling that you're feeling, that dragging down feeling, that negative feeling, just for a moment, because it's a moment that you want to tap into. And you use that as a question of like, where did I learn to feel this way? What is it that makes me feel this way? And if you can, just imagine back, let your imagination go to the first time you were taught that you need to feel that feeling of being dragged down, that feeling that something is pulling you down. Now, most of the time when you do that kind of shadow work, this little bit of a shadow revelation, the first time you felt that way is generally all it takes to start to clear it. Just bringing light to that feeling, and it's not running away from it, right? We tend to think like, "Oh, there's this feeling that I just don't like. What can I do to change my mind? How can I get my mind off of it?" Fine, do that sometimes, but it's not gonna go away. What you wanna do is like, "Oh, here's this feeling I don't wanna deal with." It's like, too bad. Take a breath, go into that feeling, let yourself feel it. Really let yourself feel it. Maybe even make it worse for a while, even though it's uncomfortable. Let yourself feel it worse for a little bit, and then go, what is this feeling teaching me about myself? What is it that I need to know about this feeling? Where did I first learn this feeling? How has it been protecting me all of these years? Because it's there for a reason. It's been protecting you. It's been saving you for a reason. And what would life be like if I no longer had this feeling? And if you ask yourself those questions and you sit with that inner contemplation with that uncomfortable feeling, you're bringing light to that shadow. And that shadow will start to disappear because you're now aware of it. You're now accepting that part of you that you didn't want to accept before, that you didn't want to deal with before. You're accepting it. You're bringing light to it, and you're understanding yourself at a different level. Excuse me. And you're understanding how that shadow actually helped you at a certain point in time. So you're understanding more of what you need and what you want to get out of life and out of that situation. And so that it will actually start to dispel automatically, and you'll start doing something differently. You'll start feeling in a different way. And then once that shadow is dispelled, another one could come up. We all have lots of shadows. I still have lots of shadows. And it's just more of that feeling. Go into the feeling, let yourself feel it. And like you're saying earlier, don't bite off more than you could chew. Do one at a time. don't do more than to three at a time. Work with it and then go back to being in a better state. See how it affects you positively. And then when you've got your strength back and you're feeling like you're on solid ground, then go do another one. Don't do too much at once. Just do a little bit here or there.
Yeah, I haven't really been aware until I talked to you about shadow work and then reading Eckhart Tolle, and then I was poking with, and I've been told I've been looking at the shadows too much, so I have to really stop it. Uh, mm, I didn't know what I'm doing, so I didn't put light into the shadow, but I think there's a lot, and I tend to want to solve all the problems. And a friend of mine, he was also depressed, and he said the things that, like you said, right, the things you're aware of, those are the things you can look at. If you start to go deep, you will find things you're not ready to cope with.
Right. And that's how I'm there to help people. And that's how I work with people is really 95% of the time just being aware of where the shadow came from is enough to dispel it. But I've got some really deeper techniques to going through to really learning what those shadows are about, to in a safe way, in an empowering way to get rid of the shadows. I've got I've got an online program that I'm working. It's going to be a coaching program. So we've got 6 to 12 weeks that we'll work together. It's not ready for prime time yet, not ready for release, but we'll do everything from learning what the shadows are about, where they came from, to soul wound healing, to how to deal with a dark night of the soul, because the dark night of the soul is the soul not being satisfied with where your life is, and the soul is disrupting everything in your world, throwing everything just into disarray. Everything is awful because the soul wants that part of you gone, part of your life gone, so that it can start living like it's supposed to be living. And so this whole shadow work course that I'm putting together is really about getting into the deep dark stuff that we don't want to deal with so that we can clear it to move to a higher state of being and start letting life be what it's supposed to be instead of what it's become.
That's deep stuff. So I think that's definitely enough for the listeners to chew on. If, so what I got out of it is like use the practice we talked about before, with bringing in love, good feeling, sacredness into your heart, into your being. Feel it wherever it is. For me, it must be in the heart most of the time, but it could be
Right.
anywhere, I guess.
Hmm.
And that's what I learned, and that it works fine for me. Is like just to feel this warm happiness, this love in the heart. The birth of the kids is definitely something, right? And could be a
Yes.
moment of awe that you've been on Kilimanjaro and you're just there seeing the sunrise or whatever it is. Feel that moment, feel it filling up your entity, your body, fill it up in your room. You can also imagine the room being filled with white light or like from the floor up, removing all the entities. You talked about the walls around you, make them uh, hard so nothing can enter. So it's kind of a sacred space for you as well. And then going to just one feeling, you realize it comes back, and then just be there in a moment, not too long. You don't want to attract more of these negative entities, I guess, to make it stronger. So just try there and ask yourself, when did I feel it the first time? What is it telling me? What did my mind, my ego try to protect me from?
Hmm.
And be conscious about it. Like Eckhart Tolle talks about consciousness. Be conscious about those things.
Yes.
And by being conscious or focused on it or understanding it, you shine light on it. And by that, you normally dissolve it. I guess if
Yes.
there's something deeper, if you really have some mental issues, I think you should find a consultant and not start doing that alone.
Totally agree. If it gets traumatic and it starts bringing up a trauma moment, that's when it's time to seek somebody to help. But if it's a non trauma thing, work with it.
And in your case, it was just to be lazy. That's what we talked about. That's,
Exactly. Yep.
there was, yeah, I have to ask it. Sorry, I'm dragging out this conversation as usual. Um, I've heard also shadow does not have to be negative. It could also be something, oh, how to say negative. It could be also something you pushed away from you and you're kind of jealous um, on others achieving certain behaviors, or you put people on a podest, like saying
Mhm.
mostly like musicians or a dancer or a movie star or whatever it is. You put them up on a podest. I heard that could also be part of the shadow.
what I would define as a shadow is an unwanted behavior, belief, or an emotion. And that could even be like, I need to be nice to everybody around me. That could actually be a shadow trait because you're nice to everybody around you all the time. There could be some deep seated fear of rejection. There could be some deep seated fear of a lot of things. There's some different layers under that one. But when you unwind, why is it that I'm always super nice to everybody all the time, even though I don't want to be? Because, that person's saying yes. And they say, "Yes, I'll go do this for you the weekend. I'll help you move into your house this weekend." Meanwhile, in your mind, you're going, "Oh, I was planning on doing this weekend and that this weekend. Why did I say yes to this?" Well, that's a shadow trait. That's a shadow that you're sitting there going, "I need to be willing to say no, hold my space. This is what I'm doing." And, it's kind of a weird lesson, but sometimes upsetting somebody else and being willing to have them get angry with you is part of that shadow clearing. You're no longer feeling that resentment, you're holding your space. So, yeah, shadows can sometimes be positive, but they're actually ultimately unwanted and destructive for our life, even though we think they're positive.
Okay, for me, it's like also putting up your boundaries. It's like
Yes,
braving the wilderness from Brené Brown. There we go. She's also talking about like, so if you don't have your boundaries up, and that's when you say yes all the time, and that's when you feel frustrated because people step over your boundaries because you didn't put them up. And people are frustrated with you because they don't know where to go because you say yes all the time.
exactly. And that's a shadow because it's an unwanted behavior.
But you also still need to take action besides of accepting the shadow. Otherwise, it might come back. Or
Exactly. You got to work with it. You got to figure out, why am I saying yes to this? What's underneath that? Where did I learn that yes? How has it been protecting me? And what do I want to do differently now? And how does that look?
yeah, and then what will I do differently from now? That then you also have to take the action because if you don't take the action, you don't really solve it, I
Oh,
guess.
yeah. I've helped a lot of people learn to say no their first time. And the first few times they say no, they're like scared. And then after they do it no a few times, you're like, oh, because it makes the yes more powerful when you say no more often. And that yes is powerful for everybody.
Yes, I agree. Okay, thank you so much. So we have a call to action. We know what mystic and spirituality is. We have been going into Black Mirror more. We know now what it is and how to be careful, how to prepare for any kind of ceremony, even if it's just your daily meditation. Um, what is shadow work and how you define shadow for yourself. And we looked also at some ghosts and spirits and nature things. And we wish both to see Yeti or Bigfoot. They agree on that. I would love to see something like that. And yes, so what else do we tell the people? Is there anything else you would like to share with them?
Wow, we covered a whole lot. I don't know. My brain just kind of went blank on that one.
So we have covered it for today, right?
We
So
did.
we have more questions because, yeah, as we know, Kaedrich is not, it's complicated, it's not simple. So there's more to talk about. You talked about some kind of guy from India which traveled the world and teaching the world. So let's hear about him next time.
Yeah, we'll do that when we get to some runes, talking more about the runes because he's related to all of that.
Okay, yes, I really need to get your book first. I'm still working on other spiritual books, so when they're done, I go there. So thank you,
Perfect.
all the listeners. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as you did the last one, and see you for another one.
Hail. Thank you guys.